Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of my What Is series. In this series, I will pick a gaming platform and dive into its history and its intricacies. In this first episode, I'm going to talk about the PC-98, a computer system by NEC that dominated the Japanese computer market in the 80s and 90s. The PC-98, which is short for the 9800 series, was the last in the series of computers made by NEC. The first in NEC's line were the 6000 models, which came out in 1981, and the 8000, 8800, and 9800 models were to follow. The very first 9800 model came out in 1982, and this series was manufactured all the way up to 2003 before being discontinued. Despite the 9800 series being intended as business machines, the gaming industry took a liking to the platform and started producing numerous titles for it. This was definitely a pretty big part of why NEC's computers dominated the market at that time. Now, eventually computers with far better specs were released, such as the Sharp X68000 and the Fujitsu FM Towns, but the 9800's greater install base kept it as the computer platform of choice for gaming for many years. Thousands of games were produced for the PC-98, many of which are quite famous due to being long-running series, having anime based on them produced, and for having remakes on later platforms such as the Sega Saturn. Rance, the long-running adult RPG series, began on the PC-98. The beloved bullet hell shooter series Touhou also got its start on the PC-98. Another long-running adult adventure series is Can Can Bunny, which started on the PC-98 and even received its own anime series, albeit it was only 6 episodes long. Eve Burst Error was released on the PC-98 and received a remake plus a sequel on the Sega Saturn. The same creators also created Uno on the PC-98, which got a Saturn remake and a PlayStation 4 remake in March of this year. While the infamous La Blue Girl didn't get its start on the PC-98, its popularity spawned a game with a slightly different premise than the original on the system. Yet another long-running series that started on the PC-98 is Dragon Knight. Older anime fans may remember the incredibly silly OVAs based on the franchise. Speaking of silly adult OVAs, remember this meme? That's from Wordsworth, a dungeon-crawling RPG that came out on the good old PC-98. The super long-running RPG series Ys by Falcom didn't get its start on the PC-98, but rather on the PC-88. It did, however, have a few sequels on the PC-98. Another game gamers today might recognize is Corpse Party. Yup, way before any of the current games, it got its start on the PC-98. Well, it's pretty clear the PC-98 obviously had a wide variety of games made for it. The most popular genre was the adult-oriented adventure titles. Sadly, most of these titles are going to be next to impossible for non-Japanese speakers to play, but a few of the ported versions have been translated to English if you can find them. Just USA was the main company that released these games, but there were a few others mixed in there as well. The more famous titles released include Graduation, known as Sotsugyo 2 in Japan, Season of the Sakura, Pretty Soldier Wars AD 2048, which is a remake of the PC-98 title, the Lightning Warrior Raidi series, also remakes of the PC-98 series, Runaway City, and Nocturnal Illusion. It is a shame that there aren't more of these available in English, as some of them are actually quite good. The Dead of the Brain games, for example, feel like Resident Evil crossed with a trauma film, replete with over-the-top gore and hammy dialogue. There was a fan translation project in the works, but apparently that has been floundering for years now. But hey, if the internet can get a translation of Policenauts done after decades of trying, perhaps there's still a chance for this one in the future. Plus, there were a few fan-translated titles out there, such as Eve Burst Error, Uno, and Touhou. So, are there any games that non-Japanese speakers can play on this system? Without those fan translations, of course. Yes, there are a number of games with English menus, such as the tactics RPG The Last Guardian, as well as numerous puzzle games, mahjong games, and even more. There are also Japanese ports of certain Western PC games that allow you to play through them entirely in English. A few of these include Wizardry 3, SimCity, The Bard's Tale, and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons: Heroes of the Lance. Now let's talk about actually collecting PC-98 hardware and software. If you have a keen interest in acquiring the hardware, I highly suggest researching the games you want to run and their system requirements. The later models are going to be able to play the majority of games, but some of them require special hardware add-ons such as MIDI sound cards. When you do figure out what you want, your best bet is to actually go to a store in Japan that sells retro PC stuff, as you can see it working in person and transport it home easily enough. If that's really not an option, then you can also check sites like Yahoo Auctions, which has a huge amount of the stuff available. Of course, your two biggest problems are going to be buying the items in question. You'll want to use a buying service like Buyee, as most Japanese sellers won't ship overseas, and the shipping. Not only will shipping a computer likely be expensive due to the weight, there is a risk of damage as computers are pretty sensitive. I would highly suggest you have your buying service add extra protection to the package and to check the machine before you turn it on. If you're just interested in the software itself, there are loads of titles available online that are easily purchased with the buying service. Now, I believe the emulators you can download can run these physical games, but you will need a disk drive capable of running them, and I'm not sure if those will work with PCs. Obviously, you can also download the games online, but that is considered illegal piracy, so I'm not going to endorse that. Even though these games are pretty old, they're still owned by somebody, so it's still considered piracy. Keep that in mind. If you're interested in the emulators by themselves, I have included a link in the description to a site that has a number of them available. If you download their big pack, they have pre-configured ones already done for you, as well as ones for other systems. I've also included a link to a page that has screenshots of most of the games available, as well as important information on how to get these games to run. If you own any of the Touhou titles, they typically require you to flip dip switches on the PC-98 itself. These notes, as well as all the screenshots, are a great resource for anyone interested in PC-98 collecting. So to wrap this video up, allow me to tell you what ended the PC-98's reign on top. It was NEC themselves. When Windows 95 hit the market, it started to take Japan by storm. And while NEC worked with Microsoft to have the operating system function on the PC-98, NEC kept their hardware proprietary and under license. While this business model worked wonders previously, it soon became NEC's undoing. Windows 95 wasn't fussy about special hardware, so other companies such as Hitachi and Panasonic were able to release cheaper, non-proprietary DOS clones, which promptly knocked the PC-98 off its long-held pedestal. Why pay more for a system that runs the same software as everything else? Its death was a bit of a shame, as its hardware limitations that pushed developers into making their games so unique faded away, but the legacy it left behind is undeniable. It may remain somewhat obscure to those outside of Japan, but its inspiration is still felt in many games today, particularly in the Aerogame market and in all those famous titles still ongoing. The PC-98 may be long gone, but it won't be forgotten. Hey, thanks for watching my retrospective on the PC-98. If you have an idea for what system I should cover next, please let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe as always, and don't forget to check me out on Patreon. Even the smallest donation there helps me keep this channel going.